Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and I'm doing a little bonus video today. I had a patron request from one of my patrons, or Patreon request from one of my patrons, and he wanted to know that what if someone who wasn't familiar with Doctor who was kind of a newbie to Doctor Who, had access to seasons 7 through seasons 20 of the classic series. and they only had time to watch one story from each season. Which one would I recommend and why? For a newbie, I have a feeling he's doing a marathon soon, and I don't think he's watched a lot of these in a while. Because I know for him, Doctor Who kind of stops after 5 Doctors. That's pretty much his cutoff point. All the way up to 5 Doctors, he's good. I'm not sure what he thinks of 60s Who. I'm going to have to ask him about that. So we're going to talk about, for someone who hasn't watched Doctor Who, he has, he's a Doctor Who fan. I think it's been a while since he marathoned it. Which ones would I pick and why for a Doctor Who newbie? Season 7, I would go with Inferno. I know some people would pick Spearhead, but I feel like, while Spearhead is a good jumping on point, I think it could confuse people with the Doctor being, and the Doctor being incapacitated pretty much all of the first episode. I could see people watching the first episode and not going to the second one. Whereas Inferno, man, my sinuses are up. Inferno, I think there's so much going on in Inferno. It is long, it's 7 parts, but it's one of the best paced, longer Doctor Who stories, like 6 or more parts I can think of. It never drags. And there's so many different things that Inferno is juggling, and it never drops the ball. Everything with the Primoids, or whatever they're called. Then you have everything with the alternate Earth. You have everything going on in both of these with the Stallman in both universes. The Doctor's still trying to fix the TARDIS. It has a lot of stuff it's doing. Everything with Sir Keith, and then Stallman trying to deal with Sir Keith. Everything going on with the little sub-relationship between the one guy and Stallman's assistant. It juggles all this beautifully. And I like all of the different story elements and the fact they're utilized so well. I love the parallel Earth stuff. I love seeing these different, darker versions of characters we're familiar with, like the brigade leader as instead of the brigadier, and this version of Liz Shaw, and even this version of Benton, because this version of Benton is really only like slightly darker. It's almost like you can almost see how our Benton could be like that. It's just little things, like this version of Earth and the alternate Earth doesn't seem like it's too far a stretch away from our Earth. Just a few things happening differently. And that fascinates me when things are only a little different. Not like completely different, but only slightly different. I enjoy that. So I would recommend Inferno. For Season 8, I had to think about that one. I think I would say The Mind of Evil, because it does, in a small way, act as a sequel to Inferno, with the Doctor still kind of suffering from Inferno. It's a great 6-parter. I like the idea of the Keller machine. I think the effect of when the Doctor sees the flames at times is a really good effect. It's done really well. I think Roger Delgado is great as the Master in it. Anytime him and the Doctor are together, I think it's good chemistry. I like the little shootout scene at the prison. I like the stuff going on within the prison. Other than the colorization of it looking a little rough, understandably, I think it's the best story of Season 8. The only other one I would have considered was Terror of the Autons, and I just think Mind of Evil is the better story. So I would pick Mind of Evil. For Season 9, Day of the Daleks. Especially the special edition of Day of the Daleks. I will never understand why anyone would prefer, some of the purists who prefer the original version of that story. The special edition of Day of the Daleks is just miles beyond better than the original. One, I love the concept of the story about time travel and how they accidentally cause what they're trying to prevent. I find that fascinating, of being basically in a loop that they have to try to break. The enhanced effects really make the execution of the story live up to the story. I think it's a great introduction Dalek story for people. If people have never seen the Daleks, I think it's a pretty good one. Not one of the best, but a good one. It is my favorite Pertwee Dalek story. And the special edition, of course, does have the enhanced Dalek voices. It's worth that for that alone. And I think Joe is good in it. I think the Doctor is good in it. I always like Pertwee. I like everything going on in Day of the Daleks. It's one of my favorite Dalek stories overall, so I would definitely recommend that one. because it would be good to familiarize someone new to the franchise with the Daleks, since they are kind of, I think, the show's #1 main antagonist. If there is one main villain, it would be the Daleks. Season 10's a little trickier. If it was someone who was not familiar with the show at all, I wouldn't do Frontier in Space because it's basically part of 2 stories, and I wouldn't do Planet of the Daleks because it's part 2 of 2 stories. I don't think I'd do the Green Death just because they haven't had time to get attached to Joe yet. And I don't think I would do the 3 Doctors because I just wouldn't want to drop all of that canon and lore on them. I wouldn't want to drop previous Doctors on them. So for me, the best one would be Carnival of Monsters. Carnival of Monsters 1 is just a great story in its own right. I really like the design of the Drastics. I think the story is really good. It has some nice comedic elements. It has some nice serious moments. There's a real threat with the Drastics, how dangerous they are and how they follow the Doctor once they get his scent. I like the idea of the ship being in the time loop. I like everything going on in Carnival of Monsters. It really is a hidden gem, and at 4 parts, it's not overly long. So that's the one I would go for in that situation of someone who wasn't familiar with the show. Season 11, The Time Warrior. I would definitely say The Time Warrior. It's a great introduction to Sarah Jane Smith. It's a great introduction to the Sontarans. It's a Robert Holmes story. And it's a nice historical, especially if it's someone who is interested in history. That was my favorite subject in school. So if they're really interested in history, it goes back to like the medieval times. So if there's someone who's like a King Arthur fan and stuff like that, you kind of go back to that. And again, Sarah Jane, Sontarans, Robert Holmes. I would go that one. I haven't seen all of season 11, but of the 3 I've seen, that's the one I would pick. Season 12. I would say either the Ark in Space or Genesis. I don't quite know how I would go on that one. I would probably go Genesis just because it's iconic. Just because, I mean, if you don't like Genesis, you're probably not going to like Doctor Who. Genesis is one of the best, so I would probably say Genesis. If you've never seen any of them from that season, I think I would go Genesis. Ark in Space is a close second, though, and a great alternative. Season 13. Whew. Oh, my God. How do you pick just one from season 13? That's hard. Man. I would say Seeds of Doom. I would probably say Seeds of Doom. It's such a good finale. It's such a good finale. Yeah, I would go Seeds of Doom, especially if they like horror stuff, or if they're a fan of The Thing or something like that, or if they like that kind of body horror. Say if they're a big Cronenberg fan. Yeah, Seeds of Doom. Season 14. You know, I'd go Face of Evil. I know a lot of people say Talons, and Talons is great. I mean, you do have the worry of if they are a certain young age, they might have some issues with Talon. That, definitely things I don't agree with, but I could see younger people having a couple issues. You guys know what I mean. Which they should still watch Talons. Talons is great. But I like The Face of Evil. It's a very underrated story. It's a great introduction for Leela. It has its serious moments, but it also has a lot of very humorous moments. That was either a really good shot or a really bad one. I like that one. Ah, the evil one. Well, I think that's a bit much. I enjoy all of that. Tom is really good in that story, and Leela's one of my favorite companions. I say The Face of Evil. Season 15, Horror of Fang Rock. Gotta be the Horror of Fang Rock. It's easily the standout of the season. Again, if you like horror, and it also shows that, you know, some of these TV shows, the hero saves everyone. We must save everyone. Everyone will live. Horror of Fang Rock does not work like that. Horror of Fang Rock is a perfect example of, try as he might, the Doctor can't save everyone. Doctor Who is one of those shows, especially classic Doctor Who. People die. It's just how it is. People die. He would love to save everyone. It doesn't work out like that. And I love the way that one is shot. Just the imagery of it, the green glow, the isolation of being in the lighthouse and being cut off from everyone. It's. I am a great magician. Your shirt is red. Anyway, picking up back where we left off, I believe we were talking about season 15, Horror of Fang Rock. Definitely the one I would go with. It does a really good job of showing not everybody makes it in Doctor Who. The Doctor can't save everyone. I like that it's realistic like that. In Doctor Who, people die. He has to try to save who he can. He can't save everyone. Horror of Fang Rock is definitely a prime example of that. Plus, it just does horror really well. I love just a lot of the effects. I love the camera techniques. I love everything really about this story. And the idea of the story of them being on this isolated island, in this lighthouse, cut off from help. It almost has this claustrophobic sense to it that I like. It does a really good job. Plus, that glowing green light always looks creepy. Really good story. About the only irksome part is the one woman in it. She's really annoying. I was glad when she died. I was rooting for the Rutan right there. Get her, Rutan! Moving on to season 16. The Pirate Planet. I love the Pirate Planet, especially if you like Douglas Adams' sense of humor. His style of humor. I enjoy this one. Douglas Adams and Tom Baker just fit together. Like, they were just made for each other. They fit together like perfectly, like two perfect pieces of a puzzle. And I absolutely adore when they work together on a Doctor Who project. I enjoy a lot of the humor in this episode. I really like the Pirate Captain. The Pirate Captain's actually a more fleshed out character than you might pick up on a first glance, especially with the more comedic nature of the story. But if you actually pay attention to the Pirate Captain, what's revealed about him, and how he acts at times, he's actually a very well written character. And a bit of a tragic character, actually. I'm quite fascinated by his character. He's obviously a genius. Even the Doctor is impressed by that room he builds. I mean, he doesn't like it. He condemns it. But he's impressed that the Captain was able to build it. That's pretty neat. If you're not into Douglas Adams' humor, I would probably recommend the Ribos Operation. That's another really strong one. It's a good alternative, I think, for that one. And easily my second favorite of the story. Ooh, my sinuses. That's also a really strong one. I like it a lot. For the most part, really good story. Romana's great in it. And of course, Tom Baker's always great. Season 17, City of Death. I mean, of course, City of Death's just amazing. The location work alone makes it just worth a watch. I love the location work in City of Death in Paris. It just looks beautiful. So much different than the quarries they usually film in. It's such a nice change of pace. And Tom and Lala were obviously on a very high point when they were filming this, because they are just phenomenal together, and they look like they're having the time of their lives. Julian Glover is great. The actress playing the Countess is great. I love the guy playing Duggan. I wish we'd gotten more Duggan. Duggan would have made a great companion. Kind of like Jamie, not the brightest guy. But he clicked really well with the other two, with Tom and Lala, and I would like to have seen more of that. And then, of course, it has my favorite scene in all of Doctor Who in it, when they're being kind of interrogated by the Countess. Well, why was he following me? Well, you're a beautiful woman, probably. That could be my favorite Doctor line. You're a beautiful woman, probably. Who sent you, Doctor? Who sent me one? I love all of that. That's comedy gold to me. I love that kind of wit. What a wonderful butler. He's so violent. I love that. And how Tom says it with this smile. I adore that. It's great. And plus, I love just the whole story about Scaroth being scattered throughout time, and how that's what caused humanity to start. That's fascinating to me. I enjoy that. It's a well-written story. Douglas Adams, once again. Season 18, I would say either State of Decay or The Keeper of Traken. Again, I tend to love State of Decay. That's my baby. I think it's the masterpiece of the season. I like the kind of horror aspects in it. It does kind of have that Hinchcliffe horror vibe to it. And I really like that. And plus, the death of the three in it is just phenomenal. The way they die, that effect is really well done. Really impressive. Hats off to that. Although the effect of the Vampire King and what happens to him is very poorly done and kind of negates it. But a good story. I really enjoy it. Adric is actually, for me, Adric's really good with Tom. He doesn't become irksome until he's with Peter. But Keeper of Traken is really good as well. My favorite Anthony Ainley role in all of Doctor Who is him playing Tremas. I just love how he plays Tremas as this really regal, smart scientist who's trying to do right by his family and trying to do right by his people, which makes his fate all the more tragic. I think it's a really good story. It's really nice having that particular villain of the story back and how he's utilized. And then, yeah, a good introduction to Nissa as well. I like the... my sinuses are really bad. I really like the Keeper of Traken. So it'd be one of those two. Season 19... This is a hard one. Because, like, if it was someone rewatching who had seen it before, maybe it'd just been a while, I'd probably either say Castrovalva or Earthshock. Because Castrovalva is my favorite Fifth Doctor story. I enjoy that one a lot. And Earthshock is also really good. But I think if I was recommending for someone who had never watched Season 19, I would probably go with The Visitation. Part of me wants to say Four to Doomsday, because I love Four to Doomsday. But it's all studio bound, and since Season 19 has all of the location work, the original film elements surviving, I would want to pick something where you can see that. And for me, especially since Black Orchid's not that great, I would go with The Visitation. I like The Visitation. The location work does look phenomenal on it since the original film elements survive. And I think the story is really good too. I actually really enjoy the story of The Visitation. It's a really good one. So that is the one I would pick if it was somebody just watching Doctor Who for the first time. But again, if you're on a rewatch, maybe Castrovalva or Earthshock. And Season 20, The Five Doctors. Gotta be The Five Doctors. I do count The Five Doctors as part of Season 20. So I say go and watch The Five Doctors. It's glorious. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to some of the previous Doctors who you should be familiar with the concept of regeneration at this point if you've been watching Season 7 through Season 20. So I would say, yeah, The Five Doctors. Plus you need more Troughton. Troughton's great. Troughton always steals the show, so I never argue with more Troughton. So yeah, that is those are the stories I would pick if I was watching Season 7 through Season 20, which is what Steven requested me to talk about. I think he's going to do a marathon. Although personally, since I know he's seen these before, I might recommend Three Doctors over Carnival of Monsters since he's familiar with regeneration, and I love the Three Doctors. Again, Troughton steals the show. But, yeah, that's what I would recommend in that. So I want to give a special shout out to two of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the Fifth Doctor. I appreciate their continued support, just as I appreciate Stephen's request. I hope he enjoys his Doctor Who marathon when he gets to do it. I really don't feel too good today. Go ahead and click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also do have a Patreon. If there is something there that interests you, I would appreciate you checking that out if you have a moment. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me, and there's a link to my Amazon wish list down there as well. If you want to check that out, I update it regularly. Most importantly, though, despite the fact the second half of this video, I probably look like I'm about to pass out, because I might be. Most importantly, though, despite all of that, thank you for watching.